Warning. The following contains stories about drug use. This is for entertainment only. I do not condone the use of drugs. Drug dealers of Reddit, what is the strangest thing you have been offered in compensation for drugs? Someone offered me their dog for a $50 bag. They were such a shitty person and a terrible dog owner. You best believe I took that fucking dog and we had 8 glorious years together. Don't tell my current dog, that was the most caring dog I have ever met. I miss the big guy every day. That asshole probably bragged about what a good deal he got, but let's be real, the dog was the real winner there. Not a drug dealer. But I sold insurance to low-income people. I went to collect the premium for a family's insurance and they had a dog tied to a tree with maybe a 1-foot lead. That may be generous. I told them it was my hubby's birthday and I would give them $20 for the puppy. They told me to take the fucking dog, it was a pain anyway. It was hands down the most grateful, happy, loving dog I ever owned. R.I.P. McCoy, I miss you so much. My friend would sell his boss weed and then was paid through his paycheck. He thought it was a great deal until I explained that he is now paying income tax on his weed sales. I mean, you don't want to tangle with the IRS about money you got from selling drugs. They don't care how you got the money, they want their taxes. Edit, I meant the /s for sellers who don't sell that much, like 10 to 20% drug income and the rest of their money comes from a job with a proper job, W-2 and stuff like that. The replies I'm getting sound like even those people should file their taxes properly though. I mean, that's kinda how they got Al Capone. If they can't get you on anything extremely illegal, just them through taxes. I had a kid write me an essay for To Kill a Mockingbird in high school for a 1/8 of weed. Got an A, gave him an extra bag for it. Added info 1, no, I was not the teacher. Added info 2, I didn't read it because of some issues, unrelated to drug dealing, going on in my life at the time. This is a great hustle. I wrote more than a few papers in college to support a habit. A lot of frat boys are more than willing to pay a couple $100 for an A on a term paper. Same paid every night out from freshman year to senior year. I don't know how people manage to be poor in college. My old dealer got his leaky roof fixed by a roofing crew he sold crack to. Sadly, his roof still leaks, because his roofing crew smokes crack. Everybody knows the best crews are on meth. I did construction one summer as a teenager. There was one dude in his 50s that always showed up early, worked hard, left late, and never complained. I eventually asked another guy about it. So you know how most people drink a cup of coffee to make things go smoother? He would do meth, like, often. Former drug dealer here, I used to do it so I could afford to eat while at uni. I once had somebody offer to invite me to Christmas dinner in exchange for some weed. I said yes and I got to enjoy Christmas with him and his family stoned out of our minds. Was an awesome experience, and since I couldn't afford the trip home for Christmas, it turned what would have been a depressing day into one of my all-time favorite memories. I love this one. What a weirdly wholesome post. My dealer in high school would get people, usually gullible freshmen, to give him their $80 to 120 graphing calculator in exchange for $10 to $20 worth of weed. This man made a serious profit off those things. This response just made me realize that the girl I knew who was in such a rush to borrow my calculator for an exam and never gave it back probably just sold it for drugs. FKU Katie, but nobody is shocked. Never met a Katie that wouldn't do this. My dealer took magic cards back in '94 and '95. Could you imagine getting a Black Lotus for a dime? Shit, in '94-95 the big pull would have been Chivan Dragons. Of course, those are super valuable again now, but the Moxes and Lotuses wouldn't have returned anything in trade until a few years later when everyone realized how broken they were. Clarification, Chivan Dragons from Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited are worth something, $1,950, $1,400, and $130 respectively. Chivan Dragons from Revised are only about $10, and anything after that is a few cents. Chivan Dragon is not a valuable card or even a good card. Shivan Dragon from the earliest sets are just incredibly rare and collectible cards because it's one of the most iconic creatures in MTG history. I used to pay with loose change when I was a poor kid. We dealer loved it, his job had vending machines, and I supported his snack habit. Where in the world did you get that much change? Pizza delivery and waiter in the 90s. Tons of change piled up over a week, and we could stretch nickel and dime bags. In my younger days before being a parent, I sold weed and ended up fronting a lot out, and then when the people couldn't pay me they would give me iPads, bongs, knives, and one time almost a gun, but I didn't know if it was stolen so I declined. I accepted almost anything that I thought was useful or cool. The strangest thing I got was a $1 t-shirt. It was just $1 but it was folded into a tiny shirt and I thought it was cute, so the kid basically got a gram for $1. I still have it too. Life pro tip: learn origami to impress your drug dealer so they'll give you a good deal. This was in the 90s. A school near me was going through some major renovations. They were practically going to be built again from the ground up. Anyways, a district administrator tried to trade one of those big outdoor school signs for some cocaine. Hey, I don't know the values involved, but it'd be pretty cool to have one of those giant signs. I figured the sign was worth more than the cocaine in monetary value, but I didn't take it in the end. I couldn't figure out what the hell I would do with a school sign. I had a friend begging me to bring something over to him. When I asked about payment he said he had something better than money, and that I'd be pleased with it. He wouldn't say what it was, but made it sound like it wasn't safe to mention over the phone. From the way he was talking it seriously sounded like extremely hush-hush. I was intrigued. It ended up being like a total of $9 across 3 gift cards, a 2MP digital camera, and an old phone that was missing the battery. He said the digital camera could be sold at a pawn shop, the phone could be used to hide drugs until I got a battery for it, and the gift cards were just something extra he felt like throwing in to sweeten the deal. I also had an incident where a friend of mine needed to buy and I decided to hit up my Connect to pick up on their behalf. The friend picks me up, drives me to the dealer's house, and I ask them for the money before I head inside. They reached behind the seat and pulled out a Ziploc bag full of pennies and was like, "Trust me, it's all there." For clarification, the drug was just weed, but it was before California allowed recreational shops, so only a handful of people had access to it in my area. And I didn't take the pennies to the dealer. I had enough to front my friend, so I paid for it and kept the bag. The amount of coins did end up being the exact amount needed. Not a drug dealer, but my drug dealing friend once came into the kitchen of the restaurant while I'm chopping celery or something, and he's dragging a big huge black garbage bag behind him. He'd already been to prison once and just got back out apparently. I said, "George, is that a freaking body?" He goes, "Frick yeah, it is." I gripped the knife a little tighter at that point and looked for the exit. He pulled the garbage bag back and he had 3 huge Alaskan salmon in there. Some guy didn't have enough cash, so he paid him in salmon. Lol. I gutted them, cleaned them, and then George paid me in salmon. It was good salmon. Man, salmon would be a good effing deal. That shit is good. Reminds me of when I offered to pick up my college friend from the airport before school started. She lived in Ak and paid her way to and from school in CO by cooking on fishing boats. She said she'd bring me some fish for my trouble. She had to pick up the salmon at the oversized luggage rack with the skis and golf clubs. It was an entire huge salmon, yanked out of the water, frozen on the ship, and wrapped in about 20 layers of trash bags. It was enormous. I kept that thing in my chest freezer, occasionally sawing off pieces with a hacksaw. Best salmon ever. Friend of mine used to sling various drugs while he was in college. Mostly weed and psychedelics, but he dabbled in selling the harder shit here and there. He said some dude offered to live with him as a personal wiener sucker for a week in exchange for some exorbitant amount of blow, something like 2 ounces for being an on-tap BJ machine for a week. My friend didn't even have that much coke at one time. The most he ever had at a single time was like 20 grams, and he only sold it when he came across it for a stupid cheap price and during spring break when all the hardcore college partiers were going on spring or summer break. He turned down the offer. If he would have accepted the offer, and then turned the guy out on Craigslist for $20.00 billion J's, he'd have made a mint. Edit, holy shit. Nobody else immediately thought of that, eh? I am a terrible person. When I was in middle school, someone stole their grandpa's World War II souvenirs to trade for pot. Friend of mine traded him $30 worth of weed for a 1941 Hitler Youth dagger recovered from one of his grandpa's kills. Absolutely gutted. Kids can be so ignorant. Imagine what those souvenirs might have meant to his grandfather. Honestly, I try not to think about it. It's really sad. Back in the 90s when I was selling a lot of meth and ecstasy at raves, I had one dude offer me a gold wedding band for a baggie. I took it and noticed it had some Cyrillic writing on the inside. I took it to a pawn shop I knew that had a Russian owner, and he told me it was from a family in Russia that was very connected to the royal family that was murdered during the revolution. I knew the kid, and his parents, and I knew he had stolen it from his mother, who was a child of refugees from the revolution, so I just stuck it in an envelope and mailed it back to them. That was a nice move, sending it back. If you enjoyed this, please smash that MFing like button and subscribe. Doing this will allow me to make this type of content more frequently. Thank you very much.